Hi, I'm Robi, also known as ambroscrochet somewhere on the internet, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet these coin purses. Okay, so I'm going to give you a very general overview of what we need because it really changes depending on the subject that you want to make. But as far as my coin purses, I'm going to be using some cotton. I'm going to be using a crochet hook, so that's going to be a 2.5mm crochet hook for me, and then a kiss lock, and then a needle. And you want to make sure that the eye of the needle is small enough that it can get through the holes on the kiss lock, but big enough that you can use it with the cotton or the yarn that you work with. And then we are going to need some scissors, and then potentially stuff like beads, for example, if you want to make the watermelon, or obviously you can use some alternatives, but I'm going to be using beads. Okay, so here are the main stitches we will be working with. So we'll be using magic ring, single crochet, increase, half double crochet. We will work in back loops only, and if you want to make things like, for example, a little leaf, then you will also need chain stitches, double crochets, triple crochets. Okay, so the way that I thought I could go about this tutorial so that I don't have to tell you the exact measurement of the kiss lock that you have to use, but so that you can adapt the pattern to any kind of kiss lock, is as follows. First of all, I'm going to show you how to make the watermelon version of the kiss lock, so this one, and then I'm going to show you how to make something like the lemon or the orange kiss lock, because the watermelon is going to give you an idea of how it works, and then with the lemon you get stuff like color changes, which can be a little bit more complicated. So we basically build on a more theoretical foundation, if you will. So we're going to start with the watermelon. Now, if we are going to start with the watermelon, you want to have a general idea of what you want the project to look like. Obviously you can just follow what I'm telling you, and that's perfectly fine, but if you want to make your own, then you want to start with a general idea of what you want the watermelon to look like. Right, so basically I'm going to want a circle that is going to be red, and then a little bit of white border, and then the green for the peel of the watermelon. So basically I want to get to this point, right? What's the main problem? The main problem is that we have to, at a certain point, change colors. If we didn't have to change colors, we wouldn't have this issue, but it's an issue that we have with the lemon as well. We have to change colors at a certain point, and we have to change colors so that the finishing size of the face of the watermelon fits inside the kiss lock, right? But because we have to change colors, it's not enough to just keep crocheting and keep increasing in the same color. We will have to change colors at a certain point, but we have to figure out where we have to change colors without having to get to the point where we have maybe made the whole circle in one color, we've reached the dimension of the kiss lock, and then we have to go back and undo something that we've already done. Okay, so in order to do that, obviously you could also go by eye. That's also fine, but it's not the way that I prefer. So I'm going to tell you how we are going to go about this. First of all, you want to measure the diameter of the kiss lock. You can do this with measuring tape, with ruler, anything goes. So you want to measure it, but you want to measure it not going from inside the kiss lock. So you can see the kiss lock has slits, right? So you don't want to go inside the kiss lock. You want to keep yourself here. Okay, so not here, but here. And we measure it, and for me that's 7 centimeters. Okay, so keep that in mind. Next, I'm going to get my crochet hook, and I'm going to get my red yarn, because I'm going to start by making that red circle, and next I'm going to show you how to figure out up to which measurement you have to work in red before you can switch to the white. Okay, so we are going to start with a magic ring. So obviously the beginning is the same for everyone. The only difference is up to which point you keep increasing. Okay, so we are going to start by making 6 single crochets into the magic ring. And then once that is done, we can close the magic ring and we move on to round 2, which is going to be 1 increase in each single crochet for a total of 6 increases. So at the end we are going to have 12 single crochets, and I'll see you once I have those done. Okay, so once round 2 is done, we can move on to round 3, which is going to be 1 single crochet and then 1 increase, repeated 6 times. So at the end we are going to have 18 single crochets, and I'll see you once I have those done. Okay, so once round 3 is done, we can move on to round 4. Now, something that I wanted to tell you is, if you worked in rounds before, you've noticed that if you keep increasing always in the same point, then you don't really get a perfect circle. You most likely get something like an hexagon, depending on how many increases you have. So if you want to get a circle instead, because it's going to be a little bit more noticeable because of the color change and because of the way that the pattern is, then, and also because it's flat, so it's more noticeable, something that you can do is, instead of always increasing at the end of the little segment that I tell you, so for example I tell you 2 single crochets, 1 increase, 3 single crochets, 1 increase. That means that the increase is always going to be in the second stitch of the increase of the previous round. So that's what causes the shape to be the way that it is, instead of being a perfect circle. So something that you can do is you can change the placement of the increase within that little segment. What do I mean? I mean that instead of having the segment go 2 single crochets, 1 increase, repeated 6 times, you can do 1 single crochet, 1 increase, 1 single crochet, repeated 6 times. Okay, that's something I'm going to do, and I'm going to throw up on the screen some suggestions for the next rounds that you can use if you want to. Something that I would suggest to you is, because it's a little bit more difficult to keep track of how many stitches you have, at least for me, because you know it's easier when you have like 2 single crochets, 1 increase, because you can kind of follow with the multiplication, almost as if you were basically going through multiplication tables, right? But when it comes to working with things like 1 single crochet, 1 increase, 1 single crochet, that can be a little bit more difficult. So something that I would suggest is you can use a different piece or a piece of yarn in a different color, and you can place it on the last stitch of the round. So for example, I could take a piece of yarn and just put it right here. So just have, I'm going to show you actually. So you could just do this, so that you don't have to count. You can just repeat to yourself 1 single crochet, 1 increase, 1 single crochet, and then again 1 single crochet, 1 increase, 1 single crochet, until you reach the end of the round, instead of just counting by yourself. Okay, so that's something that you can do, and that's going to be round 4 for me. So it's going to be 1 single crochet and then 1 increase, and then 1 single crochet, repeated 6 times. So at the end we are going to have 24 single crochets, and I'll see you once those are done. Okay, so now that round 4 is done, we are going to do what we need to do to help us with the size of the red part before we move on to the color change. Okay, so obviously you can skip this if you just want to do it by eye, but I'm going to do this so that I don't risk just, you know, working rounds that I don't need to work. So you want to take a measuring tape, ruler works just as well, and you want to measure basically how much space height wise do 2 rounds of single crochets take up for you. So in my case it's about 1 centimeter, so you can see I'm measuring the last 2 rounds, and that's just about 1 centimeter. So the reason why we do that is because by doing that, if I know that my kiss lock, the diameter is 7 centimeters, right, and we measured it starting from the outside of the border basically of the kiss lock, because on the inside, so you have to basically crochet a circle, and the edge of the circle has to go inside this part right here so that you can sew it, right? It's this green stitches, these green stitches that you see up here. But that's just going to be the last round that I work in half double crochets, so we're not counting that space inside the kiss lock as something that we need to work on with single crochets. So for me, and for this kind of pattern, for these kinds of patterns, you can see it's also the case with this one, the space inside the kiss lock isn't a space that I'm concerned with, because it's going to be the upper part of the peel that goes inside that, and it's just a half double crochet, so we don't care about that right now. What we care about is that because we measured the diameter of the kiss lock, and for me that's 7 centimeters, and because I know that I want to make a red circle and then I want to make one round in white, okay, then I know, because we've just measured it, that that round in white is going to take, when it comes to measuring the diameter of the kiss lock, it's going to take half a centimeter here, because I measured, and 2 rounds were 1 centimeter, right? Which means that it's going to be half a centimeter here and half a centimeter on the opposite side. Okay, what does that mean? It means that to reach those 7 centimeters in diameter, I need to make 6 centimeters in diameter for the red circle, and then I know that I'm going to add 1 centimeter with the white round, because we've just measured it, okay? So you just take the measurement of the diameter of the kiss lock, you subtract basically the measurement that you took of 2 rounds of single crochets, and you get the diameter of the circle that you need to make with the red color, okay, or the color that you're using for the middle. Obviously it depends on what you're trying to make, okay? So for me that's going to be 6 centimeters, because as I said, it's 1 centimeter when it comes to both sides of the single crochets of that last round of single crochets that I'm going to work in white, and then I know that I have to make 6 centimeters here, and so that I reach the 7 centimeters of diameter, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically keep working on my circle until I reach those 6 centimeters, okay? And I'm going to keep moving the placement of the increases so that I don't get an hexagon at the end of it. As I mentioned, here is a suggestion on how you could get that. So if you want to, you know, pause the screen and keep it until you're done, that's obviously fine. And I'll see you once I have the center worked, and then I'm going to show you how to switch colors and where we are, kind of. Okay, so I'll see you once that is done. Okay, so I'm on round 9 and I measured the diameter and I'm at about 6 centimeters. Okay, so that's going to be good enough for me, because I know that I'm going to add the white round, which is going to add 1 centimeter in total, because remember the round counts on both sides, so it's technically like it counts for 2. So I'm going to go to the white yarn, I'm going to join colors, and I'm going to make 1 more round in single crochets, still increasing, still changing the spot of the increases, but this time it's going to be in white. Okay, so I'll see you once that is done. Okay, so now that I have the white round done as well, and obviously if you want to make it a little bit different, so for example maybe you want to make 2 rounds in white, then you can adjust the counting. So you can measure that the last 2 rounds are going to be in white, so instead of working the red part up to the point where you have to count just, or to account for just 1 round, then you'd have to account for 2. So basically what you would do is you would have those 7 centimeters from the diameter of the kiss lock, and instead of subtracting just 1 round, then you have to subtract 2. So you'd get, instead of 1 centimeter for me, because that's what it takes for me to make 1 round of single crochets, right? But remember, it's on both sides. So while the height of the round is 0.5 centimeters, if you count on both sides, because it goes like this, so it's 0.5 and 0.5, so that would be 1, so that would be 2 centimeters in total. Okay, so you'd have to go to 7 minus 2, okay, and stuff like that. So once you're done with the color change, you should be basically to the point where you can basically fit the circle in the kiss lock without it going inside the kiss lock. Okay, so it remains on the outside. And now I'm going to switch to the color of the peel, which for me it's going to be the green, and I'm going to change colors, and I'm basically just going to do 1 more round where I increase, but instead of doing single crochets, I'm going to be doing half double crochets. And mostly I chose to do this because first of all, the height is, I found, good for the inside of the kiss lock, so for this part of the kiss lock it fits quite well. And I kind of wanted to change like the texture of the stitches to signal kind of like the change of texture of the peel, if that makes sense. But you know, just I don't know if that makes sense. So we're going to do 1 more round of increasing, but this time it's going to be with half double crochets and in the color of the peel, so green for me. So I'm on my 11th round, so I'm just going to come up with some way of increasing, and I'll write something on the screen that you can use if you want to, and I'll see you once this is done. Okay, so once that is done, we are going to take the kiss lock, and you see these little side that you have right here, this little piece that you have right here. You want to place that point so that basically it goes on the last stitch that you've just made, okay, like this, and then you can fit now the peel as well into the kiss lock, okay, like so. But I'm going to place it so that that piece touches the last stitch that I made. So you might have to maneuver around a little bit. So like this, okay. So you see that's the last stitch I made, and it's right below this piece right here, okay. And then I want you to count, starting from the stitch right after the stitch you've just made, which is the first stitch that you have that's not covered by this piece, and you have to count up to the other side doing the same thing. So you want to count up to the last stitch that you can see that's not covered by this piece right here. So for me it would be this stitch right here, okay. So if you want, you can place like a pin or maybe a strand of yarn or a stitch marker if you have one, so like this. So from here to here. So for me it's 29 stitches. So what we do next is, working still in half double crochets and in back loops only, we are going to make 1 half double crochet in each half double crochet, starting from the first pin and reaching the second pin, okay. So what we are doing, it's basically this part right here, because I wanted the purse to have a little bit more volume, so I kind of made this part right here. So that's what we're working on. So we just make 1 half double crochet in each half double crochet, working in back loops only. Okay, so once those are done, you can cut the yarn, leaving quite a long tail, because we are going to use that tail both to sew one side to the kiss lock and also to sew the first side to the second side. So you can either leave a longer tail here or on the second piece that you make. It's fine either way. And now I'm going to show you how to sew these to the kiss lock. Okay, so I've threaded the needle with the tail that we left on the first side, and we are going to place the side the way that we placed it when we measured how many stitches we were supposed to make in back loops only. Okay, so we place it so that these parts right here cover just up to the half double crochets worked in back loops only. So it's going to be here on this side, and then you push the circle up into the slit of the kiss lock. So you just push it so that you can see the color of the peel through the holes, and you can check if the stitches are basically in line with where you planned on making them, so that they would begin, the half double crochets in back loops only would begin right after the end of this part of the kiss lock. Okay, so once you have that, now I'm not going to pin this, I'm not going to pin this too much because I usually end up hurting my hand. So I'm just going to pin this a couple of times so that it doesn't move too much. So make sure that you have slid this into the slit of the kiss lock as much as it can go, and then you pin this so that it doesn't come down, right? And then we are going to take the needle where you've threaded the yarn, and the first thing that you want to do is you want to insert it in this hole right here, and then you go into the stitches that are not yet into the kiss lock, but they're basically on the side of this part right here. You can see them, it's 1 and 2. Okay, so we go here, and back into the hole of the kiss lock. And then if you have another stitch there, so another stitch that is not inside the kiss lock yet, but it's still on the side of that part of the kiss lock, then you can do it again and go back into the hole of the kiss lock. Okay, so once that is done, we move on to sewing this part right here. So to sew that part, I'm gonna try to show you. One thing that you want to pay attention to is that the inside of the kiss lock, if you can see this band right here on the inside, is shorter than the one on the outside. So basically when you insert the needle on the outside, you have to angle it so that it goes downwards, because if you just go like so, you can't get through because there is this band right here. Okay, so you have to angle it downwards, which is something that we are going to have to do now that we sew this part right here. So I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to basically reach the first hole on the kiss lock, so right here, going from the inside, because I don't want to, first of all, because that's where the yarn is, and if you've sewn it differently, I don't like particularly the look of the yarn going over like this. I mean, I did it, so I've done it, so it's not like, it's not a mistake, it's not, I just prefer when I go from behind for the first stitch right here, so it depends on your preference. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. So I just basically work the thread so that I can reach the first hole right here. Okay, and I have the needle come out, which might not be the easiest thing, but that's all par for the course. And I just pull through. Okay, and then always check that the piece is not moving too much, otherwise you end up sewing it a little bit lopsided. So I go back into the next hole, and remember we have to angle the needle downwards because we have that bend on the other side, so we go like so. Okay, and then we go right here and we go into the next hole right here. Okay, and we have it come out. And I readjust because it's moved again. You can pin it more and it doesn't, but I just know that I'm too distracted for it. So into the next hole, we repeat the same thing, angling the needle. Be careful not to, accidentally sew this into the stitches, because that has happened to me. And then into the next one. Okay, so once we've reached the other side, we can do the same thing that we did on this side for that piece of the kiss lock. So we basically have the needle come out on that stitch on the side that you can see, and that it's not under this part of the kiss lock, but that is still on the side of this part of the kiss lock. So like we did before. So once I have the needle come out there, I can go inside that hole and then go to the next stitch. And you should be able to do that with all the stitches that you have before you have the stitches worked in back loops only, right? Because that's the measurement that we took. So that's 3 stitches for me. So 1, 2. And then one last time here. Okay, and then I'm just going to leave the tail right here because we have to sew the 2 sides. Oh, there we go. That's something that I wasn't supposed to do. Okay, fixed it. So I'm very quickly going to show you how to sew the beads to this side, and then you basically have to repeat the same thing for the opposite side, and then I'm going to show you how to sew them together. So I'll be right back with some beads. Okay, so I've just threaded some red thread into a regular needle. You don't have to use the same that you used for the thicker yarn. So I'm just going to start from the second round from the color change to the white. And I have the needle come out, and I just place the first bead into the needle like so. Then you pull on the thread, And then you basically sew the bead down by going back with the needle into the same spot where you had the needle come out at first. And that's just going to sew the bead to the stitch, okay? And you can go back and forth a couple of times just to make sure that it doesn't come off. And then what I do is, so I have on this round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's the 7th round, so I have 42 single crochets. So let's say I want to place 6 beads. That's going to be 1 bead each 7 single crochets, right? So I can count the single crochet where I place the first bead. It's 1, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I have to have the needle come out pretty much here. So what I do is, first of all, I'm going to place a pin here, or I'm going to lose this. So I take the needle and I just move to that stitch by inserting the needle into the work and making sure that it doesn't come out on either side. So basically you don't want the needle to do that, not on this side, not on this side. So basically the thread is hidden, right? So okay, so take the pin out. Okay, and then you have the needle come out to the front, and once again you thread the bit and you just sew it down. Okay, and basically you repeat that for all of the beads, and yeah, I think that's it. So I will see you once I have both sides done, so that I'm going to show you how to sew them together. Okay, so next I'm going to show you how to sew the 2 sides. So once you have both sides done and sewn to the kiss lock, we can sew them together. So we are going to sew together the half double crochets that you worked in back loops only on that last round. So the way that I go about it, and as usual, if you have a better way of doing it, please feel free to. Sewing is not my my cup of tea, but alas, we kind of have to. So the way that I do it is I sew together the stitches on opposite sides, and specifically I sew together the back loops of each stitch. So I am now on the back loop of that first stitch, so I go into the back loop of the stitch right in front of it like this, and then I go directly into the back loop of the stitch that is second on that first side, so like so, and I pull, and then I go into the next stitch on the opposite side, still just in the back loop, and then back on the next stitch on the first side, still just in back loops. Okay, and you just keep going like this. Okay, so this is what we are looking like. I've placed a little bit of like newspaper inside so that it kind of gives it a little bit of a shape. And this is the watermelon version done, and next I'm going to show you the lemon/orange version. Okay, so now that we've gone over the measurements that you need and kind of like the theory behind it, or at least, you know, the thoughts behind it, I'm going to show you how to make the lemon version or the orange version, or at least something with like slices in it. So we are going to start with the white yarn, and we are going to start with the magic ring, and we are going to make 8 single crochets into the magic ring. So the reason why we are going to be working in increases of 8 instead of 6 is purely because of the color changes and because of the pattern that I want to make. By pattern I mean kind of like the drawing that I want to make. So it has nothing to do with like how curved I want it to be or the way that I want it to curve. Usually that's the way that you do it. You know, you can change like the beginning number of stitches. You can go to 4 if you wanted to make something that's a little bit more triangular, for example, but that's not the case here. It's purely because of the color changes and because of the pattern that I want to create. Okay, it's easier with 8 single crochets instead of 6. So round 2 is going to be 1 increase in each single crochet for a total of 8 increases. So at the end we are going to have 16 single crochets, and I'll see you once I have those done. Okay, so I zoomed you in because we are now going to work with the color changes, and it gets a little bit you know, not complicated. It's just there are color changes involved, so I wanted to show you a little bit better. So I'm going to be making the orange version, so I'm going to be taking my orange cotton and I'm going to change colors using the tapestry method. So I'm going to quickly show you. So this is the last single crochet of the previous round. As you can see, I haven't finished making it, and that's on purpose. So basically this is the 15th single crochet of the previous round, right? And to make the color change using the tapestry method, what you do is you insert the crochet hook, yarn over, pull through. So you do the first step of a single crochet, you don't finish making the single crochet, okay? What you do instead is you take the second color and you pull through the 2 loops on your crochet hook, so 1 and 2. So basically you finish making the single crochet using the second color so that you can now work with the second color. Okay, and what you do is you make 1 single crochet in that second color, and then because we immediately have to go back to the first color, I don't finish making that single crochet because I go back to the white. So I go back to the white, and in the next single crochet we make 1 increase. So 1 and then 2, and I don't finish making the second one because then we have to go back to the orange. So the instructions, if you will, are 1 single crochet in orange and then 1 increase in white, alternating stitches. So 1 single crochet in orange, and then in the second stitch 1 increase in white, then again in the next stitch 1 single crochet in orange, and in the next stitch 1 increase in white. So you can see that I'm never actually cutting the tail, neither of the tails, because you have to change colors so frequently that it's just easier if you just carry through both colors. And I'm going to show you in a second what I mean by that, if that is not something that you are familiar with, because as of right now I have like 500 tails that I'm hiding in between the stitches because they were left over from the color change. So just 1 second. Okay, so what I mean basically is if you make the single crochet in orange, right? So you are at the point where you make the single crochet in orange. To carry the other tail through, what you do is you insert the crochet hook into the next single crochet and you make sure that the white tail, so the tail that you're not using right now, is above your crochet hook but below the orange yarn. So you can see it's right here, so it's above the crochet hook but below the orange yarn. Okay, so now I grab the orange yarn and I pull it through. Okay, and you can see that the white tail is right now below the crochet hook and above the orange tail. Okay, so now what you do is you change color by grabbing the white, pull through both loops, and then we have to make one increase in the next single crochet. So at the end of this we're going to have 24 single crochets. I know I'm just taking a long time to explain this, so if you already know, you might be getting a little bit impatient, but sorry. So we're going to make one increase in white. So insert the crochet hook into the next stitch, and you can see that the crochet hook goes below the orange tail because that's the tail that we're not using, and the orange tail is above the crochet hook but below the white tail. Okay, so you grab the white, finish making the single crochet, and you can see when you finish making the single crochet, the orange tail is worked basically within that single crochet, which means that it goes above the white tail but below the crochet hook, so it's right there, you see. So if I pull it through, the orange tail is basically in between the stitch. Okay, so you do that again, so but this time we have to change colors, so you immediately have the orange right there. And that's just what I'm going to do for the whole time that we are changing colors. Okay, and yeah, okay, so I'll see you once this round is done. Okay, so once round 3 is done, we move on to round 4. And round 4, we are going to start with the orange, so I'm going to go back to the orange, and we are going to make one increase. So we increase in the orange stitch, and that's not accidental, obviously, because if this is what we're trying to get, you can see that obviously we have to keep increasing where we start with the orange. So we increase in the orange, and I got it wrong because I am supposed to change colors. So we increase with the orange, and then we make one increase with the orange, and then we go back to the white, and we make one single crochet in each of the next 2 single crochets. And then we change colors again, and again we make one increase in orange, and then we go back to the white, and we make one single crochet in each of the next 2 single crochets. Okay, so basically it goes one increase in orange and then one single crochet in each of the next 2 single crochets in white 8 times. So at the end we are going to have 32 single crochets, and I'll see you once those are done. Okay, so once round 4 is done, we move on to round 5, and I'm going to explain you what we're going to do. I'm also going to tell you what we're going to do, but just in case you just want like basically the theory behind it, it's this. So if you see this, you see that the white stripes are always 2 single crochets. Okay, so they don't get wider. What gets wider is the orange part to simulate kind of like the slices of the orange. I think I'm blanking on the correct term, but you get what I'm saying. So, but that's why we're only going to increase in the orange from now on. Okay. So we're still going to be making 8 increases. So basically we are going to increase in each of the orange little things that we have here, but we're not going to increase in the white because that would just mess up the design. So we go back to the orange, and we make 1 single crochet, then we make 1 increase, still using the orange, and then we go back to the white and we just make 2 single crochets, so 1 single crochet in each of the next 2 single crochet. Okay, and we do that 8 times, so at the end we are going to have 40 single crochets. Okay, so we keep increasing, as I mentioned, just in the orange portions. Okay, so I'll see you once that is done. Okay, so now that round 5 is done, we move on to round 6. So we're not just increasing on the orange parts only, which already presents a little bit of a challenge, but we're also increasing so that, as I mentioned, for the watermelon proportion, we don't get an hexagon at the end. I hope I'm getting the correct geometry word for it. I honestly don't remember. I think so, because in Italian it would be hexagonal, so I think it's the same. Anyway, what I was saying is we're also increasing so that we don't get an hexagon, but we get a circle. So you will notice that I'm shifting the place where we increase. So there are a couple of things to keep in mind, but don't worry, even though at a certain point I'm going to tell you, okay, now keep increasing by yourself, I'm still going to give you the instructions to follow if you want to and if you need to. But I'm trying to kind of like tell you how to do it so that you don't necessarily have to follow me, but you can kind of do it by yourself as well. So as I was saying, round 6 is going to be 1 single crochet in orange, then 1 increase in orange, then 1 single crochet in orange, and then we go back to the white, because remember we still always keep 2 single crochets in white. So 1 and 2. So in orange we have 1 single crochet, 1 increase, 1 single crochet, and then in white we have 2 single crochets. Okay, repeated 8 times, so at the end we are going to have 48 single crochets, and I'll see you once those are done. Okay, so now that round 6 is done, this is the time where I tell you that we keep increasing each our own way, but I'm going to first of all I'm going to explain you what we're going to do. So up until basically which point do you have to increase, change colors, so on and so forth. So remember the measurements that we took for the watermelon. So you take the diameter of the kiss lock. So I have a different kiss lock, if I can find it. No, it's not. Yeah, it's here. Okay, so this is my kiss lock for the orange one, right? So as we did before, you want to measure the diameter of the kiss lock. Still remember not going inside the kiss lock, so not from here but from here. So you measure the diameter, which is about 6.5 centimeters. Okay, so 6.5 centimeters, which means that we have to keep in mind 2 things. Okay, when it came to the watermelon, the only thing that we had to keep in mind was that at a certain point we would have to change colors, so we needed to know when to change colors before we had to change colors, basically. Okay, this time it's not just that we have to change colors, because you can see we have one round that is completely white, much like we did with the watermelon, so we have to know where to stop doing the color changes so that we can switch to the whole white, basically the whole white round. It's not just that, it's also the fact that because we are working with increases of 8, the shape isn't going to be flat, it's going to be a little bit wavy almost. I think that's the best way that I can describe it, because in order to get a shape that is flat, you increase by 6. That's kind of the rule when it comes to crocheting in rounds and when it comes to crocheting a circle. So because we are increasing by 8, what we do is we leave 3 rounds at the end, where instead of increasing, we just make 1 single crochet in each stitch, or 1 half double crochet in each stitch for the final round. But let's go in order. So to obtain that flat shape, we need to make the last 3 rounds without increasing. So we have to know which ones those last 3 rounds are going to be, right? Both because we have to change colors and because we have to stop increasing. So how do we count that? Well, much like we did for the watermelon. So one of the last 3 rounds is going to be the round of half double crochets. So as I mentioned, for the watermelon, that's not included in the count that we get from measuring the diameter of the kiss lock, because you saw that when we measured it, we started from this part of the kiss lock and not inside the kiss lock. So because the last round of half double crochets, this round right here, you see the last orange round, this one goes inside the kiss lock. Okay, so that doesn't count, that's not a problem, and that's one of the last 3 rounds that we have to make, working with 1 stitch in each stitch. So that's one. But when it comes to the last 2, we actually have to know when to stop increasing and when to do the color change. Okay, so because of the way that the design is, you can see that the last 3 rounds are, one is the half double crochets round, which is this one, then we have the whole white round, and then one is also the round where we still have the color changes. Okay, so what you do is you take the diameter of the kiss lock and you have to subtract to know how many rounds you still have to make working with increases and working with color changes. You have to take the measurement of the diameter of the kiss lock and subtract, like we did before, the height of your round of single crochets multiplied by 2, because much like we saw before, that's going to be, no, you're occupied, fair enough, because much like we saw before, if I want to know basically how much is this, right, how long is this from here to here, so ignore the last round, the last orange round, as I mentioned, that's just standard, that's just, we know that that round is there, so that doesn't count. But how much do I have to do to, how much this, okay? That's not, how long is this, okay? What's the diameter of this? To know that, you take the measurement of your kiss lock, and to know up to where you have to keep increasing, because we know, as I mentioned, we have to make the last 3 rounds without increasing, and one of them is going to be the round in half double crochets. That means that we have these last 2 rounds where we know we don't have to increase. So how much is from here to here? Okay, does that make sense? Because then we have 1, 2, and 3 rounds where we don't have to increase. So up to which point do I have to increase? You just have to subtract to the diameter of the kiss lock the height of your round of single crochets, multiplied in this case by 4, which is why I told you to take the height of 2 rounds, because it's just easier, because you immediately have 1 on this side and then 1 on this side, so that's 2, and then you have 1 on this side and 1 on this side, so that's 4, right? Does that make sense? If you have half a circle and that's the diameter, then it counts on both sides. So it's the height of this one and the height of this one, and then the height of this one and the height of this one. Okay, so instead of only subtracting it twice, if we're counting the height of just one round of single crochets, we have to subtract it 4 times. So if you remember, the height of one round of single crochets for me is 0.5 centimeters. So if the kiss lock has a diameter of 6.5 centimeters, that means that I have to subtract 2 centimeters to know up to which point do I have to keep increasing. Okay, so I have to keep working in rounds and I have to keep increasing until this thing right here has a diameter of 4.5 centimeters. Okay, because again, it's the diameter of the kiss lock minus 2 rounds of single crochets, which means 4 times the height of one round of single crochets, because you have to count on both sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I have to reach a diameter of 4.5 centimeters. When it comes to increasing, when it comes to the color change, so the round that is completely white is just 1 round. Okay, so much like we did for the watermelon, that's going to be, well, it's easier to determine because it's just going to be the second round of not increasing, so that should help you. And yeah, so that should help. That, yeah, I don't need to explain anything else, because the round that's completely white is simply the round that comes after the first round where you don't increase, where you stop increasing. Okay, I'm going to explain you again once I reach that point, once I reach the point where I have to change colors, but I hope that makes sense. Okay, so I will keep increasing. I'm going to write on the screen right now the instructions that I'm going to follow so that you can follow them if you want to. And yeah, for the rest of it, it's just well, actually I'm going to explain it once I reach that. So I'll be back. I'll be back once we have to go to the completely white round. Okay, so once you've reached the point with the increases where you have the measurement that we measured, so you've reached the diameter of the kiss lock minus 4 times the height of one round of single crochets, you can stop increasing. So wherever you are, you just make 1 single crochet in each single crochet, still following the color changes. So for me right now, I switched to orange and I have to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochets in orange. Then I go to the white and I make 2 single crochets in white. Then I go back to the orange and just 1 single crochet in each orange single crochet. Okay, and so on and so forth until you are done with the round. Okay, so I'll see you once that is done. Okay, so once you've made the first round without increasing, we can now move to the white round. So the round where you don't have to change colors and you don't have to increase. So you just make 1 single crochet in each single crochet, all in white. Okay, so I'll see you once that is done. Okay, so once you've made the round in white, you can just go back to the orange and make 1/2 double crochet in each single crochet. So once again, we are not going to increase, we're just going to make 1/2 double crochet in each single crochet, but in orange. Okay, and so on and so forth until you reach the end of the round, and then the rest of it is just the same as what we did for the watermelon. So that's going to be it. I'll see you once I have everything done so that I can properly say bye. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to make a very simple leaf if you want to attach one to the lemon or the orange or anything that you want to do. And I usually tie it here, so I think you usually use it for chains, but I just like putting a little leaf there. So we are going to start with 8 chain stitches, and then starting from the second chain from the hook, we are going to make 1 slip stitch in that first chain, then 1 single crochet in the next chain, 1 half double crochet in the next chain, 1 double crochet in the next chain, 1 triple crochet in the next chain, then 1 double crochet in the next chain, and then in that last chain we are going to make 3 single crochets. So by struggling to make these last 3 chains, you can see we can now go to work on the other side of the leaf. So we're now going to make the remaining stitches on the opposite side of the chain. So we start by making 1 double crochet in the next stitch or in the next chain, 1 triple crochet in the next chain. So we're basically mirroring what we did on the opposite side, and then 1 double crochet in the next chain, and then 1 half double crochet in the next chain, 1 single crochet in the next chain, and then 1 slip stitch in the last chain. Okay, so we have a little leaf and we just attach it to the kiss lock and then we are done. So just in case you're curious, the way that I attach this to the kiss lock is I just brought the tail to the bottom of the leaf. The bottom of the leaf is where we made those 3 single crochets, so the top of the leaf is where we made the slip stitches, so where you finish is the top of the leaf. And I just bring the tail here and then I take the needle and I go through this and then I just go back into the leaf, and then you can leave it as loose as you like. I don't really leave it loose, just like this, and you can go back and forth a couple of times if you want to. And then I'm just going to make a little knot so that I'm sure that it doesn't come off, and then I just weave the end into the leaf itself. Okay, so then we are done for real. Okay, so we are done. I hope that was somewhat comprehensible. It's the first time that I try to go for a tutorial that is more general instead of giving you just, you know, very specific instructions. So I hope that it was clear. If something wasn't, feel free to just ask me a question in the comments. I get back to them as soon as I can. You can find me on Instagram, and yeah, if you want to subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like, that's always very much appreciated. And I just hope you have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.